The Maryland General Assembly came to a close on Monday, April 7th. In the waning hours of the day, the House of Delegates and the Senate passed a $67 billion budget, the largest in the state of Maryland's history. The budget as passed includes $1.6 billion in new taxes and allegedly $2 billion in cuts, many of which are being sloughed off to the counties to pay for in the future. In a sit-down interview with the Baltimore Sun, Governor Wes Moore, the man with a megawatt smile, continued to call his legislative agenda one of pro-growth and economic progress, and readily blamed the Trump administration for the projected economic chaos impacting the state. Maricé, you were a member of the House of Delegates during Republican Governor Larry Hogan's first term in office, beginning in 2015. And as I recall, the state was faced with similar projected budget deficits, and that governor and that General Assembly found a way to balance the budget. So this is more, none of us like talking about the budget. I mean, this is more philosophical. What is the different philosophy and how to bring a budget together that serves the people of Maryland? And what was your experience?
Well, I love the prompt there, Casey. However, you're comparing apples to oranges. Governor Hogan did not have a now seasoned, let's say, second term President Trump that he had to fend off all of the different cuts that Maryland was receiving. So unfortunately, and listen, I'm not a budget person. I hate numbers, etc., which is why I'm an attorney. However, Governor Moore and the General Assembly have had to respond to all the different cuts to our different social programs the state of Maryland has. And the current budget, yes, the $67 billion budget that they just passed on Monday night has to reflect our values. Like, for example, there is a $28.8 million program that the federal government stopped supporting overall for folks with disabilities. That is a huge program that the state of Maryland is proud of. And for that reason, the budget has to reflect that through state funds, and then also being creative in that now the counties also have to foot the bill as well. For example, counties will have to foot 50% of any settlement issue with an individual who was wrongly convicted, for example, whereas before the state had to pick up that whole bill. So, this is a direct response to the Trump administration cuts to all of the programs that we have statewide and countywide. Unfortunately, there's a trickle-down effect of now everybody's going to have to pick up the bill that the federal government is not willing to.
Well, it's an interesting take on things, because when at the beginning of the year, before any mention of the Trump budget cuts and what they were doing, there was already a $3 billion deficit, Maricé. So there was a big hole to fill. But Jackie, welcome to 21 this week for your first appearance.
Thank you.
And let's talk about the tax increases. There's, the governor proposed 2 new tax brackets for higher earners beginning at $500,000. Income taxes are being hiked on the middle class because of the elimination of the itemized deduction for earners over $200,000. There's a 2% surcharge on capital gains taxes. For us here in Montgomery County, there's going to be an increase in the piggyback tax. And then there are the assorted higher gas tax, electric bill surcharges, additional vehicle fees, an increase in the tolls. But the most important of them is the tech sales tax, which was vehemently opposed by a lot of people. So what are Marylanders going to get out of this budget?
Well, I would say overall very little. And you beat me to it with your response to Maricé that we were dealing with this budget deficit before Trump even, won in November. So this was something that we knew was coming. And to her point about needing to fund things like disability services, there was a huge rally in Annapolis this year because one of the things that the General Assembly wanted to cut from their budget, which of course it's fully Democrat controlled over there, was funding for disability services. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there. In terms of what we're getting, what you listed off isn't even the exhausted list of all of the increases that the General Assembly has proposed this year. And I think especially this tech tax and things like, the tax on tires, things like that, all it's doing is driving people out of the state, and especially their businesses. You have Delegate Brian Crosby, who even said himself, this tech tax is terrible. I'm moving my own business to Virginia, but I'm still going to vote to impose it on everyone in the state of Maryland. So even the Democrats don't want to do business in their own state because of the policies that they're enacting. And we've seen this before. We've seen this under O'Malley with these high income earners who are moved into these new tax brackets. They have the resources and the finances to just pick up and move south or move somewhere more tax friendly. So they don't have to stay here. They're going to leave. And then, like Maricé was saying about trickle down, well, that tax burden is going to trickle down onto the middle and lower class families in the state. And the other part of this is I think that this budget deficit has been growing and growing year over year because of Kerwin. And the Democrats have proven year over year that they are not willing to scale it back. Even Governor Moore suggested scaling back on Kerwin this year to try and help with this deficit. It would help tremendously, not just on the tax burden to the state, but also the one that they're pushing off onto the counties who have to continue to raise property taxes every single year just to try and keep up. So I think that the Democrats in the General Assembly, unwilling to make any serious spending decisions to cut back on Kerwin, just shows that they are more beholden to the teachers union than they are to.
Well, I want to explore that a little bit with Maricé. Maricé, as a former member of the House of Delegates, how did you respond to these pressures from both the need to cut and then also the need to protect your programs, and how did you go about making decisions on where to make your support, to throw your support?
Absolutely. And I think to Jackie's point, if anything, the General Assembly has been responsive to the loudest groups. And so because there was an attack on the disabilities community, they raised their voices, and the General Assembly responded to that. To that same effect, one of the loudest voices in the lobbying that we receive in Annapolis is from the teachers union. So I actually agree. I agree. When it comes to Kerwin, we have, I feel like we've just invested years and years and years into these programs. Now, it's philosophically, I agree with everything that Kerwin proposes. However, we have become beholden to the teachers union, and I'm one of the Democrats that did not benefit from the teachers union endorsement twice. And so that's because I speak to the needs of our students, not just to the needs of our teachers. Our teachers, yes, we need strong pensions, we need strong salaries, et cetera. But we've become beholden to the teachers unions to the point where we're losing sight of what really Marylanders need right now. Did I address that question? Because I think there was something else that was going to come up after that.
No, it's just, I think what I love about when you appear here is you do provide this additional perspective of having been in the legislature and having to deal with these competing interests on when you're there. So I think it's wonderful to hear. And as we can all pick apart the budget that was passed the other day. There's certainly, I testified twice before the General Assembly on behalf of my trade association, the Maryland Land Title Association, about certain different tax increases. And so, there are all these competing interests. So, the exit question here, we talk a lot about the experience we had under Governor O'Malley. And so, but as a financial planner told me, you shouldn't make your decisions based solely on taxes. So the exit question will be very short because we're getting the sign to cut it off, is will there be a mass exodus of people from the state of Maryland as a result of all these tax changes? I'll start with Jackie, and then we'll go to Maricé.
I do think we're going to see a mass exodus, but only from the people who can afford to get out. So your high income earners, your business owners, you're going to start to see them exit. And unfortunately, the people who can't afford to leave are just going to be stuck holding the bag. And
Maricé.
I would say, seeing what happened with the O'Malley administration, we did see an exodus. However, I would say there's going to be exodus of Americans all over the country because of other issues. We have tariffs on top of all the taxes. So with all that, at this point, the state and the counties are just, they're thinking creatively to be able to address all of our programs and to be able to fund the things that are important to us.
Well, thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate it.